Talking about Mani Ratnam, right? They're two filmmakers who debuted in the 80s from South India, from two different languages, and they both basically reshaped the entire India cinema landscape. And I think you can guess who those two people are. It's a pretty obvious choice.
Right.
Yeah,
You want me
so
to guess?
yeah,
But there's no guess. It's Ram Gopal Varma and
Mani Ratnam.
Mani Ratnam. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was really poetic that you interviewed Ram Gopal Varma on Devan and Century because that's also another legend who went crazy. So, yeah, why do these two individuals, right? They both worked in a very different scopes, but they were really instrumental in shaping our perception of cinema. And you've also been, I could say, you're also in terms of criticism on a popular format. You also really shaped the conversation of cinema as an aesthetic. And it's a lot harder to talk about the cinema aesthetic when compared to say the socio-political thing or why a film worked or what was the reason behind a star's rise and success and all that. And you've done it very consistently throughout the years to such an extent that a lot of filmmakers will come to you and tell you like Anubhav Sinha or Anurag Kashyap, like, were you in the room when I was writing this because you got me so well. And it isn't just the aesthetic, right? You can tell there's this dolly zoom, there's a Dutch angle and all that. You don't really bring that out. I don't think you've ever talked about the technicalities very specifically. You talk about the perception that it creates in you. Like, I'm watching this angle, it
Because
reminds me of this. And I was talking to Madan about his book, right? And he said, I'm trying to do what Baradwaj Rangan did for Indian films to Indian film music. But and then we were talking about that you weren't talking about the technicalities. You're talking about the feeling it evoked in you. Like with A.R. Rahman, you wrote he creates soundscapes. He does that's a really very intimate way. How do you bring out I'm not even able to phrase the question correctly, but you're able to phrase your thoughts in such a lucid manner. It's really incredible. How do you pull that off? Or what were the influences that
I
made you do that?
see. I firmly believe that that this kind of thing is in your DNA. This kind of appreciation for an art, just like some people, I've told this many times before, just like for some people, the appreciation for food is in their DNA. They can they can go to a restaurant and say, no, you know what, this is missing something like this. There's not enough this or not enough that. I'm the kind of
Yeah,
person for whom food is completely down in the food chain, so to speak.
yeah,
So it's like, you just give me something, I'm just going to gobble it up and go away. I'm not going to like create this thing. But there are some people to whom sports is like really really ingrained in the
yeah,
DNA. They pick up sports very easily.
yeah,
They are able to remember sports statistics very well.
yeah.
They look at stances of current batsmen and say, you know what, Gavaskar used to bat like that or whatever it is. It's like that's a shot that hasn't been seen in 20 years or something like that.
But again, that's
I
technical, right? You're bringing out the feeling that you're able to
so
put that
but
in
art
words.
evokes that emotion. Art
Yeah,
evokes that emotion. So the one of the nicest compliments that I got was from an actor. I'm not going to tell you who. He says, you really have rasa in you, which was really, really nice because he kind of said that you're able to appreciate uh, like music and dance and art and that's all because filmmaking is a combination of all those things.
yeah,
Maybe that's how I do it. And the reason I don't I have talked about Dutch angles around once or twice or something like that. But gradually I realized that if I want to convey what I want to do, which is to kind of make people take this art a little more seriously,
yeah,
and not just as like something that is, oh, the story is nice, it works for me. The story is not nice, it doesn't work for me. I want to tell people that even if the story is not nice, even if you're not buying the movie may still be worth watching because of all these other reasons. Because there are so many things in a movie. Because two things don't work doesn't mean the other eight things should be dismissed. Because that's
right,
the ideal way to watch anything, right? It's like you're not just watching it because it gives you satisfaction. It's like watching it because of you want to examine the art form.
yeah,
And it comes from a lot of learning. It comes from a lot of speaking to experts about how you did this, how you did that. In fact, a lot of the times, they and these people have been very generous about sharing what they did with me. and it comes from like really being curious,
Yeah.
and always understanding that I don't know as much there is to like, for example, it took me a long time to understand what the difference is between a track and a zoom, or rather, I know what a track is and what a zoom is in theory, but how to differentiate between the two of them when I see a shot. Like, because both of them move towards the subject, and like how to make out a tracking shot from a zoom, things like that.
Yeah.
And I think, but the thing is, if I write all these things, it's not going to be very uh, uh, interesting to people, and they're going to be intimidated. So I think it's going to be very useful if I tell them that, see, because you y- if you're doing something for, in order to create an impact in that storytelling.
Yeah.
So it just occurred to me that creating that impact, that should be the part that should be focused on, rather than how that is created. More important to kind of like realize that this is why that thing has been done, or why that thing has been done. So for example, and that's one of the reasons I really like people like uh, who push stuff within the mainstream, because that's the hardest place where you can push anything.
Yeah. But you're not
Uh,
just combining cinema, you're not just writing cinema, right? I would argue you're also writing a form of literature. I think one of your essays, I think the Madras Malay and Maniratnam essay was on an English textbook. And I think that's a very rightful place for it. Because you really
it
are,
was.
yeah, it was. You write very well. My English exams, I do great because of you.
Oh
So,
my God. Yeah, that's nice to know. But I mean, I thought
yeah,
I used to
and
write in a very pretentious way, but now I think I write in a very nice. I'm actually right now, the way I write, I'm very happy with. I'm not very happy with the way I used to write even 10 years ago. I thought
yeah,
I was very pretentious.
right. Maybe because you use a lot more fancier words like filtrum. I still like. I don't know for
Yeah,
cocktails
yeah,
use filtrum.
yeah,
I still remember that word. So yeah,
yeah,
I've
and
used it
I
in
think
yeah,
I was basically trying to do a lot of things, combine literature and
yeah.
reviews or whatever.
But
I don't think
that's
I had the.
really admirable effort. Like. And I remember you were once talking about, I think in a discussion about Kabir Singh, you said, I love reading Vladimir Nabokov's Lolita. Though it's a very repulsive tale, I like the literature and the way he writes. So are you inspired by writers like Nabokov or Gabriel
Oh,
Garcia
I love
Marquez?
Nabokov.
So who are your
Yeah,
literary
because
influences?
uh, the two that you mentioned, Nabokov,
Marquez?
Marquez, all these people that write in a certain way. There's a certain delicacy in their writing. Uh, I'm not a fan of Hemingway. His prose is very curt. I like people who write flowing sentences. I like Vikram Seth. And
Yeah,
Equal Music is one of my favorite books. I just love that book. The way he talks about music in that book has probably taught me so much about how to write about art. Oh my God, I'm just getting gooseflesh when I think about it right now.
yeah,
Uh, now, writing about music is very difficult. It's very
yeah,
difficult.
yeah. And I also
It's
remember you wrote about Muhammad Rafi, I think in some piece, you're like, his voice is like incense, the scent aroma of an incense stick rattling around. That's a incredible metaphor to use. I
because that's no, and also the metaphor comes from how I feel about it. Because see,
yeah,
one of the things that I still do, and probably because the generation I belong to, is that I still I can't work listening to music. For me,
right,
music, when I listen to music, I get drawn towards it.
yeah,
I start listening to the lyrics. I start listening to this tune. I can't switch off.
yeah,
So when I work, it's in silence. It's like I know, or it should be uh, something like white noise. Something that is basically there, but it's not really. It's not in a musical shape or form. Because if I
yeah,
started listening to Beethoven or something like that when I was writing, I'm like, good Lord, I would be like severely like tone. I cannot do that at all. I cannot. I know, but I know a lot of people who listen to music and write. But
Yeah.
because for me, music is so
Holy.
emotionally overpowering. Even today, before I go to bed, I kind of listen to some of my favorite songs and just get into that nice dreamy drowsy state, and then go to bed, because it's like it doesn't matter how many times I've heard those songs. It's
Yeah.
the words, or the that lulling feeling that it gives you. I still believe that music is something that you listen to with utter concentration, uh and not while you're doing something else. And I'm not saying that this is the only way to do it, but I think I think one of the nicer things that somebody said to me was that my writing was very intense.
Yeah.
That they got that the way I felt about things is very intense, and I think
Yeah.
that really made me happy, more than your writing is very uh,
Fancy.
literary or whatever it is or whatever, because intensity in art, I think, is a good thing.
Yeah.
I think that's something that people should aim for, and I don't think you should be ashamed of the fact that you love a movie that other people did not like,
Yeah.
or you did not love a movie that other people liked. I mean, because you're there to service the art. That's what the critic does. You're
Yeah.
not there to talk about the film of the moment, or just get into popular trends or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You're there to kind of, which does not mean you have to be contrarian. Because one of the movies I loved most this year was Mark Antony. I thought it just was so wonderfully bizarre.
Yeah.
It was so bizarre, and like I
Right.
just loved the fact that there was a voice, a tonality in that movie that I hadn't found elsewhere in a
Did
long
your did
time.
your friends from the Madras Film Society like that movie too? I think they'd be really embarrassed of you liking that movie.
Yeah, a lot of people come and say, "How can you like this movie?" I mean, I don't know. It's like, see, I don't know why people separate
But
genres as these are
it's not your
legitimate genres. And
yeah, it's not your friend. I just wanted to talk about, the Madras Film Society. I'm not sure which one was it. You once mentioned in a comment that when you were growing up in the 90s, you were at
yeah,
a
I
film
don't know if it still
society.
exists, and I don't. I see.
Yeah,
But the thing is, that
I was
time,
I thought I
the
was
only way
wondering
to.
if it shaped your understanding of cinema in a way because that doesn't exist today anymore. Like a film
Yeah,
society
so
for
that
films.
did, because it just exposed me to cinema that wasn't there.
Right.
That and the USIS and the French embassy and the British embassy and all that, because they used to have film screenings regularly.
Yeah.
And I still remember movies of Fellini and all that. I was watching them without really getting an understanding of what it was about. And but the point is, because I got a lot of that into my system very
Yeah.
early on, I was able to then later break into, see, I think one of the biggest things that's happened is, for me, is I got in the habit of watching all kinds of cinema very early on,
Yeah.
because on Doordarshan there was Benegal, there on the one hand, or there was like Amitabh Bachchan on the other hand. Like,
Yeah.
so there was no real differentiation for me. A movie was a movie. So if it was slow, it was slow. It was fast. I didn't even think of it as slow or fast or whatever it
Yeah.
is. But I think it was just this love for this art form that developed, because it tells stories in a very elliptical way, as opposed to a book where you can take a lot more time to tell a story or to get into the mind of things. And I think I'm just drawn to visuals,
Yeah.
that. So I think yeah, that's what
Was
that's
Doordarshan
what
also your introduction to other language films? Because you,
yeah.
for a Tamil film critic, it's really incredible how well you write about Hindi, how well you write about Telugu, how well you write about Malayalam. I see a lot of, Telugu, I'm sure you see them on Twitter too. A lot of Telugu cinephiles, they keep bemoaning, why don't we have a Baradwaj Rangan in Andhra who understands popular cinema and can write about it? I mean, you look at your reviews of a Chiranjeevi movie, for example, you to an extent understand the on-screen history that he's had, like as the dancing star, as this sort of all-rounder comic hero type guy. You really get other stars well, even Mammootty. When you wrote about him in
But
Kannur
I think
Squad.
that's also because of the interest, right? See, the thing is, I think one of my biggest pluses, and I really cannot take any credit for this, because it's all like the way my psyche works, is that I I look for what a film is trying to do, and then if it does it well, it works for me.
Yeah,
if a ballet film is trying to entertain me in a ludicrous manner, and it does that in a ludicrous manner,
Yeah.
then that film is a success. I'm not going to
Yeah.
compare it to some Oscar-winning movie and say what crap this is or whatever it is, because that's not it. And I also one thing that I've become very very comfortable about of in recent times, and when I say recent times, I mean about 5 6 years, is that when you talk about a movie that you've just seen, that's your impression of watching this movie with a variety of other factors. Maybe you watched the movie with a headache. Maybe you didn't get enough sleep. Maybe you have
Yeah.
some financial troubles. Maybe you have other things. So the next time you watch the movie, when none of these factors are there, you might like it more or like it less or whatever it is. So it's not some written in stone thing
Yeah.
that your review is pretty much the last final word you're ever going to have, because your feelings about
That's
films keep
actually
changing.
a great point because that happens to me a lot. I remember I was watching The Godfather, right? Because everyone talks about The Godfather, and I just couldn't get through the first 10 minutes because I've seen Zootopia where there's a Marlon Brando imitation. I've seen like a gazillion movies where there's a Marlon Brando imitation. That same scene has been done in Sarkar. Ram Gopal Verma did that in 1 minute. So I have a hard time getting into the iconicness of that movie, right? I'm
Yeah,
not able to get it. But I remember Goodfellas, which is also an iconic movie, but didn't know it was as iconic as The Godfather. I enjoyed it's probably one of the funniest movies I've seen. I genuinely think of it as a comedy. I even think of Maheshinte Pradikaram as a comedy. It is a very funny
yeah,
movie. And it just zooms like you talk about fast-paced storytelling now. Goodfellas is like a trailer. It just keeps
yeah,
going. There's just no stopping. And after that, after a few years, I was home alone and I was just watching The Godfather one fine day. And I just couldn't stop looking at like the intensity that Al Pacino brings, or just how
yeah.
perfectly cast everyone is. And I think I should do that for Nayagan someday because Nayagan also, one reason for Nayagan, I couldn't get it. The print is very bad. The print is terrible on Amazon Prime, on YouTube.
And
And
and it really hurts that particular film because it is
yeah,
probably Mani Ratnam's most high contrast film.
yeah.
The contrasts are very high in that movie. So what
And
he and DC
Dalapati
did,
works very beautifully even in that bad print. Like I love
because it's not
Dalapati.
such a high contrast film.
Yeah,
It's
that's
not.
yeah,
It's I mean, I don't mean as one as better than the other, but Nayagan is
yeah,
very high contrast. So the print really matters in terms of
yeah,
like the blacks and all that it's just ruined in pretty much everything that you see. So
yeah. So and
yeah, if there's one film that I would like to see restored, uh it's actually a couple of films that I would love to see. Piravi restored, and I would love to see Nayagan restored.
I think they're
It just would
releasing
be
a restored version of Nayagan for Kamal's birthday, right? I'm waiting for that actually.
I don't know. Is it restored? I don't know, because is it restored in the Indian restored sense of thing where they just pretty much amp up the sound, or are they
I don't
actually
know.
like
They
going
say
frame by frame and
you're the
like
closest to Mani Ratnam, so you should know.
I I don't think they are or Kamal or anybody who really know who's doing this.
Right. So yeah, another thing is right, film versus digital. You wrote something about this in Public Enemies, I think. You were like, I wish the opening frame was in film because in digital it's just an expansive blue, but in film it means freedom. And I didn't really get that. I just thought it was like an old guy being nostalgic. But I remember watching Mathilukal or I see a lot of older movies. I was just sitting around and watching them. And the colors really stand out in film. Like
Oh,
there is
yeah,
there is some rich inherent richness to film, even though
yeah,
it's
yeah,
dissolved, the quality is bad. They just elevate your viewing experience. Do you think that's why
yeah.
maybe you're like very pessimistic that the feeling of film is not there in digital?
No, the pessimism is more about the market and other things. It's not
Right.
about the audience, the market, and other things. It's not about the film itself. But now I think digital has kind of caught up to an extent with what film was capable of. So I don't think now, and also people have figured out how to light for digital, because early in
Right.
the early days of, if you look at Mumbai Express and all those films where the very
Yeah.
early digital cameras were used, right?
Yeah.
Uh, they didn't know how to light for dark spaces, right? I
Okay.
mean, they were still trying. I'm not saying they did not know, but they were still, it was still an experimental stage, so that the blacks would have spotting and all kinds of things would happen, right? Whereas
Yeah.
now people really know how to light for digital, so because there are no film cameras anymore.
Yeah.
So You don't have that problem of thing, but still there's a certain softness about. If you see a restored version of the most cliched beautiful movie of all time, which is like Lawrence of Arabia, one of those movies,
Yeah,
you will see a certain softness in the
yeah,
film, in the texture, the visual texture of the film, which you will
yeah,
not get in easily in digital.
right.
And again, Michael Mann shot it in I think a particular kind of, because what he did in Collateral I liked much more than what he
Yeah,
did in Public Enemies.
because Collateral has a
That
lot more
worked.
icy cold sort of
Yeah,
atmosphere.
and he got the darks better in that
Yeah,
movie. Uh, but I'm trying to remember which year. I think Public Enemies was 2006, I think, if I'm not mistaken, or
yeah.
whatever. So
The
I
lighting
think
in
that,
the lighting was an
yeah,
issue.
yeah.
Yeah,
But now pretty much it's like, since everything is shot digital, people have really figured out the what to do in order to how to light up for
yeah,
digital. It's like, I think
yeah.
they've become more, because earlier what they were doing is they were lighting up for digital like they would for film.
Yeah. Speaking of
Uh,
lighting, right, I was, watching some of Marcus Bartley's older work, the famous photographer, Chennai cinematographer, Missy Amma, the Telugu versions I saw. And the lighting, the cinematography, especially in Maya Bazar, I was really surprised by how good it was. And then I saw
yeah,
even Andanal, it was some scenes I didn't understand, there was no subtitle version. I just saw, Parasakri, the climax, just some frames, and it's lit very well. Sure, there are other films then that were like Nadagams, as we used to say, but looking at your reviews, right, you have this tendency of saying Hindi cinema in the 50s was at another level, and that Tamil cinema till the 70s, till Sridhar, Balchandar, Bharti Raja, Balu Mahendran came, it was a lot more stage playish. And I agree that Raj Kapoor films are extraordinarily well made even today. I still think they're some of the finest films made. But do you think that's somewhat untrue? Maybe that might be true of for maybe the dramas, because the spectacles we were still pretty good at. You look at a Chandralekha, you look at Maya Bazar, you
yeah,
look at
yeah. No, see, these are, I'm talking about the average film that came out, right?
okay,
For example, like one of the series of films that made Shivaji Ganeshan's name was a series of films that he made with this director called P. Bhim Singh, and
okay,
they all began with the letter Pa. Now
okay,
you look at them down to the last movie; they're all static, stagey, stage plays, which is not to say that they're not interesting or involving or
yeah,
whatever it is, but they're not cinema. You know what I
right,
mean? They're not cinematic. They're all like structured, like how you do drama. So you're drawn to them because of the conflicts within the characters and the story and all that kind of thing. But there's nothing really visually very
right.
thing about it. But one of the reasons I like a lot of those films is also because black and white photography is much. It's There's a lot of
It's aged very well.
those guys really,
It's aged
it
very well.
lights. So there are a lot of older filmmakers. They knew how to really use black and white.
Yeah,
So they kind of that some of that has gone off today. So if you look at uh I don't know if there was a recent film that used black and white, but I'm saying those older, like even in Hollywood, if you see the noir films, uh,
fabulous
they look
lighting.
so much richer than something like Mank.
Yeah, yeah,
They look so much richer. There's such texture in those
yeah.
movies. Like
I
you
mean,
just
I've seen
feel
only
like
Casablanca, so yeah,
that's not noir, but technically, yeah, that's like, yeah. But if you look at something like The Night of the Hunter,
yeah.
which is an amazing film and one of Martin Scorsese's big inspirations, it's like, oh
For
my God,
Shakespeare.
the
Yeah,
cinematography in that movie is just outstanding, and the colors,
right.
oh my God, the colors in a black and white film. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like the various shades of black and white in between. So that's an amazing film. Yeah.
yeah. And I also wanted to ask you about say, Ram Gopal Varma, right? The closest we come to noir in Indian cinema was Ram Gopal Varma. And something that really gets me, maybe because of my parochial sentiment, is that we don't talk about Ram Gopal Varma's Telugu work as much as we talk about Ram Gopal Varma's Hindi work. I agree now
Mm.
that Satya is his finest film, but it's not like Shiva or Kshanak or Gayam was slouches. So yeah, is there anything that you would like to talk about those films? Because no one talks about them.
I really like it. See, because when you see Shanam, the very fact that you're trying to make a kind of adventure movie which
Yeah,
also has a kind of a love story, that's very, that's very unusual, right? For a
Yeah,
movie genre of the time.
yeah,
Gayam again. It's like, or when you're talking about all those films, you're talking about, for that matter, I would say, in a way, Shanam Shanam is even more revolutionary than Shiva, because
true.
what it tries
It
to
has
do,
aged better also than Shiva.
yeah, because it actually tries to do something very unmainstreamy in a mainstream format, which is to
Yeah,
tell a road movie, but at the same time, you talk about, the characters are much more gray.
yeah,
Like, like, so there's there, and then in the middle there's this little love story kind of interlude,
yeah,
uh, which I don't know which if today's people would kind of respond to that, but it's see, the thing is, again, I come back to the people again. See, it's people who grew up in the 80s, or rather made the cinematic bones in the 80s. It's like,
and who
those
worked with
guys,
Amala.
and worked with Amala, yes. And see, those guys, they pretty much, they because the cost of production was not much, it was
Yeah,
still possible to get big stars like Venkatesh and Nagarjuna and all these people, like, kind of stuff, and like, do whatever experiment you wanted, because the stars themselves were not very because they were sick and tired of what their fathers and forefathers were doing, and they were like,
yeah,
let's break away from this and
yeah,
do something new.
yeah.
So that fear has come back to stars, where the stars are now saying that, I just want to do something. This is too raw. This is too that. I mean, like,
But
Nagarjuna didn't say that when he saw.
But you're talking about risk taking, right? And risk taking is complete. It still exists to some extent in Telugu, Tamil, and Malayalam, but it's dead in Hindi. Like
It's
the
dead in
way.
him.
And one thing that I thought about, right, is, the Nepo backlash, and I think a lot of people have wondered, especially the South Indians, like we worship these dynasties, we worship Chiranjeevi's son, we worship Chiranjeevi's grandson also if he comes at some point. Why is there such a backlash to the Hindi Nepo kids? And I was watching one of Zoya Akhtar's interviews and just realized, God, this is Javed Akhtar's daughter, and this is a Hindi filmmaker, and she didn't use a single Hindi word in the whole interview. And
Yeah.
you look at people today, like Janvi Kapoor, Sara Ali Khan, they're not able to speak Hindi. They just don't know the language very well. The fluency, even Sridevi was a South Indian, but she spoke Hindi in a better way than her Mumbai born daughter. You think the sort of lack of understanding of language is what is really pulling them down?
No, I don't think that's one.
Because let me give you
That's
another
because there
example.
are enough people, because you did have a Gadar too, which is very steeped in local color,
Yeah,
and
that's
people
the
like,
point. That's the point, right? The local color films, the films that have that. So I know it sounds more parochial and jingoist to say Indianness, but films that speak the language of the people. Like even Pathan is a very Hindi film. It's got these heavy Urdu dialogues. I remember he uses the word kahir. I don't know when they've used that word in a long time. Even Jawan has got very Hindi lines. So yeah, that's very much missing today. Do you think that's the reason why the
that could be the reason it's not paired. See, the thing is also, Hindi had this boom phase when multiplexes came, when people are
yeah
watching a particular kind of film and they realize that they could make their money
yeah
from just 5 or 6 cities alone.
yeah
Like a classic example would be like a Piku, which is like a very
yeah
good movie, but it's also a very niche movie because it's
yeah
not going to travel to the interiors much. But they made about 70, 80 crores by just
yeah.
playing
That's it.
in Bombay, Pune, Delhi, Calcutta,
Chennai,
Bangalore,
Bangalore.
Chennai, whatever it is, like Hyderabad, like a bunch of
Yeah.
places. That's all. It didn't even go to the second tier cities in these places, but the pricing of the tickets and everything helped. But then post pandemic, that entire market dried up because all those people decided to watch movies from home.
But let me give you a
So
counter example. Which mid-budget film after pandemic has been as good as PK and flopped in Hindi? I don't think there has been anything like that.
there hasn't, but I'm saying that now today people are also
What is
willing to.
that sort of
I'm saying
genre,
that
right? That sort of like social issue, that icky issue genre, and sort of like hit a dead end. You can't make movies beyond a point with that. Like how Ayushmann Khurrana made a film about masturbation, he made a film about erectile dysfunction, he made a film about baldness. He's run out of topics at this point.
yeah, but the thing is that also there's a sense of sameness there, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm just gonna like say thank you, VR. You are one of the best critics ever. You're one of the best bloggers ever, and it's a pleasure talking to you. So
Thank
yeah,
you for
I
being
hope you
part of the
keep.
blog, and I'm glad we finally did this. So bye
Yeah,
and take
yeah.
care. Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bye. Have fun.
Thanks.
Then please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel if you've enjoyed this video and want more content. Thank you.